What if fear could fuel your success? Welcome to Beyond the Quo. This is the podcast where we break boundaries, redefine success, and inspire leaders to embrace authentic transformation. I'm your host, Stacey Luces, and today we're going to dive into the power of storytelling, yummy, overcoming fear, and building a life aligned with creativity and purpose. Our guest today is the incredible Samdra Rodriguez-Pabon. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Sam. A creative brand strategist, designer, storytelling expert, and entrepreneur. Sam is the founder of Samdraland Studio, where she helps businesses craft impactful brands. And she's also the owner of Bloomera, which is a home bakery in Puerto Rico. I can't wait to talk about that. She's a powerhouse of creativity and purpose, balancing two thriving businesses while also pursuing her MBA. Sam's story is a testament to the power of embracing your unique voice, turning bold ideas into reality. And so whether you're navigating a career pivot, starting your own business, looking to go back to school, or looking to align your work and your passions, you're going to want to take notes as we dive into all the things with Sam. Sam, I'm so happy you're here. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Yay.
I'm excited as well.
So Sam and I know each other through a networking organization called FemCity, and we were actually both on the board for the FemCity International Collective. And so I do, I consider Sam, I have three sisters, and so I consider her one of them. And definitely I was just smiling. She's in her early 30s, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel my age. But all of that to say, we're going to have interesting, different perspectives that hopefully anybody listening can kind of take away some power quotes and so forth from that. So first, I want to start with, you are in the beautiful, beautiful island of Puerto Rico, and I have been there before, and I know that it is rich in culture, resilience, music. Once, and this is a side note, when I first moved to my neighborhood here in Florida, there were so many different cultures just on our little block. And my first Christmas party, so my last name is Luces, we called it, we just had a Luces Christmas party, and we had every family bring their Christmas beverage of choice. And what I did was,
I know where this is going.
Oh, this is going. And I had this huge table, and I had all the cups, and we had shot glasses, and people got to vote, and I had like an amazing prize. Girl, oh my God. Puerto Rico, Colombia, Cuba, Trinidad, like all the people bought all of their, and all of the drinks looked the same, right? Whatever version of horchata or whatever it was, let's just say it was a very merry... And Puerto Rico won. My neighbor who bought that Puerto Rican drink, he knows who he is, totally won and has full bragging rights. And the only thing he does now that gives a nod to that one party, every Christmas he brings a jar and leaves it. Like, even if I'm not home, he'll leave it on my doorstep. And I love that so much. So just wanted to put that out there. But tell me what you love most about Puerto Rico. And I know that you moved there from Texas, where you lived, and you made this big move earlier this year. Tell me a little bit about that, Sam.
So that was something that was in the making for a couple of years.
Okay.
I think that 2020 made us realize a lot of things, especially me, wanting to be closer to family like we do as Puerto Ricans. A lot of us giving the blessing, because I do think it's a blessing to be a United States citizen, is a birthright. We usually go with this idea when we are 18, it's like we either go to school here and then go to the US, or we never go, or, there's this conversation that always happens in every Puerto Rican household.
Yeah, it seems like a rite of passage almost.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And it's normal. So it was something that it was always on my mind to go to the US, and I was there for almost a decade between two states. And it was something that 2020 really brought to the surface. And then my dad got diagnosed with cancer a couple of years ago, and he's good. But it was one of those, it was like a slap in the face. It was that moment where I was like, no, I don't want to keep seeing my parents grow older through the phone. That's not what I want to do. So now I lived here and I love it. And the thing that I love the most is being close to my parents. The neighbor, funny enough, and you know this story, the neighbor to my parents' house. She decided to move to Tennessee the same month that was moving back. So she was telling my dad one day, "Hey, I'm gonna close out the house, just letting you know. I'm gonna move to Tennessee to be with family." And he said, "No, you're renting it to my daughter."
Wow.
So
I don't know that I knew it was right next door,
now.
though. I didn't know it was right next door. That's
Right
amazing.
next door. Yes. So it's been good, and I don't cook almost any day because my mom cooks for me, so that's been amazing.
If I'm any more jealous, I'll just keel over right here in
Yeah,
this chair. That's
yeah.
amazing. I love that. What has, I guess, and we've talked about this, right? Like last year when you were beginning to kind of get more serious about the move and putting kind of logistically things in place, you are an entrepreneur. How did that affect not only your business, but your mindset, and kind of what were some of the fears that you had around that big move back from, I'll call it the mainland, if you will, back to Puerto
Yeah.
Rico?
Yes. So two things. It's twofold because this is the year that I started my MBA in January and I moved in March here.
Yeah.
So my business was like, I need to prioritize the MBA. So both businesses, even though I'm doing them, and I started one this year, which is the home bakery, I knew that there was this sense that 2024 was the year where I had to prioritize. It was the part of my story where I was like, she's prioritizing school. And it was a shift because I had not done that in years since I got out of college years and years ago, a decade ago. And it felt like, oh, but you're an entrepreneur. Like you should be focusing in your business and you should be doing all the things and having all the things and showing up everywhere.
Yeah.
But I wanted to show up for myself this year in moving back and understanding that I needed to listen to my brain and like my thoughts and my heart, moving back to Puerto Rico to be with family and focusing on the MBA. And when it came to how I see business now, I see that there's a lot of opportunity here in Puerto Rico. I see that there's a lot of growth opportunities with the people that I know in the US who, for example, I'm thinking of Julie Allison, our friend who does retreats. I'm like, host a retreat here and I will plan it with you. Like there's so many things and so many thoughts that come to mind on how to utilize this island for my business. I also want to grow into having a brick and mortar for my bakery. So I think it has expanded, but the MBA has grounded me in focusing in that right now so that I can expand in the future. So it's twofold, right? It's like I'm focusing on my studies because that's gonna help my business, gonna help scale it and grow it on both of them. So it's that mixture of this year being a little bit more conscious of I'm not doing as much of the business because I'm focusing on growing it in another way, which is with the MBA and with expanding here locally, which I have not done. We do a lot of digital stuff, you and I, but I want to do more local.
Yes.
So.
And, one thing that came to mind when you were talking, I think a lot of times when we make a big strategic decision like that, that involves all aspects of your life, right? Physical, move, emotional, there's a part of you that's going to miss things here that was probably more easily accessible than on the islands. There's the family kind of, not only obligation, but the almost reconciliation. And when you left, it sounds like you were a young adult. Now you're going back, fully grown. And so your perspectives and certainly the experiences here, both as a business owner and just as a person living here in Texas, you've changed, right? And so reacclimating back into not only that culture with new eyes, I like to call it, but also a new perspective is such a strength that I think people even thinking about maybe not a move where it's going back to Puerto Rico or if they're from international, their home country, but even to a different state. I know when I moved to Florida from Maryland, we lived in DC, Maryland, Virginia, that area for 20 years. It felt like a Herculean exercise because all of the things that you don't take into consideration comes to the forefront. And one of the things that, when I was talking about Beyond the Quo, status quo as you were in Dallas probably felt comfortable. And the thought of making a gigantic leap of faith like that, going back to not only that, but in some ways, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm just thinking about me moving back closer to my parents after being away from them for 20 years because they lived in Florida. It was almost like we had to relearn the roles. like when I left, I was a young adult. I wasn't even married, and then when I moved here, and like you had to almost retrain each other in how to like show up for each other for what we needed at the moment. Is that a weird question, or is that kind of resonating with
No,
you?
it's so true. I think it's also living next to them has
Oh
been
my goodness, right?
crazy. It has been really good. I will say, it has been really good.
Yeah.
I will say it's also me putting boundaries out there and makes me think of just also boundaries with how I want to establish my home and
Yeah.
how they did their home.
Yeah.
And I think, growing up, I would have never thought that this was going to be my life where I lived right next
Wow.
to my parents. But it's one of those things that it have made me see them as a neighbor in another light. Like,
Wow. I
oh,
love that.
they're neighbors, they're humans, they take their trash out, they are, they do the grass, the landscaping, they do all these things. They're living their full life, and I just happen to live next to them. And now for the holidays, this is gonna be my first full-on holiday, which is here, it's like from like late October till early February. So for Christmas, it's just gonna be like it's gonna be so different to see that. We also have a nephew now. So I'm the oldest in my household. We're three girls, and the little one has 20. She's 29. But she has a 7-month-old, and it's that dynamic of seeing my parents being able to see my parents as grandparents has been really different for me.
Such a blessing. Yeah.
It has been a blessing and has been changing perspective. Seeing my dad, who worked his whole life, now just chill in retire land, and being a grandfather, it's really changes the way that you see your parents, and it's something that I a couple of years ago I saw some video where somebody said, if your parents didn't do something really horrible and they were just average parents, like whatever. Remember that as you were growing, they were growing themselves, and they were experiencing life for the first time as well, and they were making those mistakes for the first time as well. And that was a couple of years ago, and I look at them and I'm like, what was my mom at 32? She had three daughters. So it's just one of those things that it makes me realize, giving myself permission to not only be the daughter and then the friends, but also friends. And we get to do that with specific boundaries and, in conversations, open conversations.
I love that. To further kind of pull the thread on what you were saying about them growing as they were parenting you. So I'm the eldest of 5, and my youngest sister is 10 years younger than me. And I moved here when I was 17, so she was 7, freshly minted 7. And I always say that, my dad was in his early 40s when he made the big move from the islands to America, in tow with 5 kids. And I became the third parent in this, in our family at the moment of, when we came here. And so that really honed me, not only as a leader, but just as a provider. But the thing I had to relearn was how to be a sister. And, in my late 30s and 40s, and not be that third parent. And we didn't have a language barrier, but certainly helping them navigate forms and government agencies and job applications and all of the things was certainly hugely instrumental in a lot of my very serious nature, growing up. But I say that to say the parents my baby sister experienced
Not the same.
was hugely different to what I experienced. And I see her living like her best life sometimes, and like with no, and I'm like, it's almost like we forgot about her in the grand scheme of us trying to like thrive and survive, right?
Yeah.
Like she just went to school and she kind of grew up and all of that stuff. But her and I, the same parents, but very different parenting. And I feel in my bones what you're saying about that. How do you think that has impacted, like the move back, and it's been about a year. How has that impacted you as an entrepreneur? Like what different skill sets have you had to use to not only reacclimate home, but ensure the momentum of your business with clients that are here, but also now with the second business that's more physical. How is that all playing out on top of the MBA and becoming a new aunt and all of the things?
So I would say something that I was not working really well previous years that I now have to like kind of do it. I have to consciously do it every day, have a little bit more discipline with my time.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because, and even as a student, because now in Dallas, one of the things, I didn't have a lot of family over there, and one of the things that have enough now is family and friends and people who want to hang out and all these things, right? And not everybody has two jobs.
I didn't consider that, the social aspect. Yeah, I love it.
My dad is retired, so he wants to go see classic cars on a Saturday afternoon. And it's, I think entrepreneurship, for me, what has changed the most and what has been different this year regarding moving back has been the discipline that I was lacking before. Now is something that I have to do. Not that I should do, something that I have to do, because my discipline before was not matching my ambition. I know that I want to match my ambition, and I know that I have all of these goals and all these things that I want to do, but there wasn't discipline there. There was no structure. And now this year has taught me that I need to have one. I need to have a pen and paper. I need to be more structured in how do I want to deliver things, because I have realized that, although we all have the same 24 hours, I have realized when I don't have structure or discipline in my studies, in my business, in my personal life, things fall apart. And for me to be an entrepreneur who shows their face online and who is online constantly speaking to and helping other clients with their strategies and how for them to show up online and how to market their own business, I needed to have a little bit more structure. So that has changed in 2024. Because when you work for yourself, you make your own rules and you don't have a team and it's just you. So you're flexible and I will do that tomorrow. And with all the things going on, that has changed. It's not as much as I can do it all tomorrow, or I can, because I have an assignment due tomorrow that I need to prioritize that tomorrow. So today I have to work, So I would say as an entrepreneur, moving here has given me perspective and discipline, matching that ambition, like I said before, because I do have a lot of ambition. I do have a lot of dreams and goals and things that I want to do. But I lacked that discipline and structure and accountability with myself. So that I'm working on that to match, since I moved here.
Listen, that's such a beautiful quote. I almost said ambition. Have you seen that meme going around? It says, my gosh. Ambitious and ambitious. I can't even. My discipline has to match my ambition. That is, oh my gosh. Put a pin in that. We're done. The podcast is over. I will tell you, I feel like this year, so my daughter turned 18 and she's driving now. She's in high school, obviously, and my son just started high school. And for the first time in 18 years, I don't have pick up and drop off. And it has freed me in a way. Like, I feel unshackled, and I've been traveling all over, and I feel like you were just preaching to me personally, because I've always been disciplined and structured and rigorous, like attention to detail, and this year has just kind of been la la la, not in a bad way, but in a way that feels foreign to me. And I'm saying that for listeners to say Sam's on one end of the spectrum and I am one end of the spectrum, and as entrepreneurs, as humans, as daughters, as friends, as all the things, we're all trying to find the equilibrium that works for us. There's no right or wrong to this. I'm trying to like release the reins a little bit so I don't feel like I have to get up every day at 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m. like I used to, and not feel guilty if like 7:30 I'm still like, I feel like I've earned that in my mid 40s with grown children, and it still feels like a guilty pleasure. And I think that the hustle culture can look different. Do you know what I mean? And it has to ebb and flex based on your goals in the season of life that you're in. And we're in different seasons. I think I'm not going to say that out loud. I'm a little bit over a decade older than you. But do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's so important. Like, we see other people going about their hustle, and you either feel guilty or beat yourself up that you're not doing more, or conversely, you're like, oh my God, that person looks like they're chilling and going to yoga and doing breath work. And I think that you have to honor the season of life that you're in and the goals that you've set for yourself for that particular season, and either foot on the gas or you ease up off the throttle, right?
I want to share a little bit about that because when I you know that I do a lot of marketing, branding, all these things for Samdraland.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'm really exposed to the algorithm feeds me, whether I'm on Instagram, on TikTok, Facebook, a lot of other marketers, a lot of other strategists and consultants and people that want to coaches, people that want to help you with their business. I'm really exposed to that with the type of content that I do, the type of content that I see, and the clients that I serve. And one of the things that I've realized is that I have stopped following a lot of people because I was doing that when I first started this business a couple of years ago. I was following everybody because I was like, there was two things that were happening. I was following everybody and I was comparing to everybody. But what I failed to look at, right, because I was growing in the business, was that those people either had teams or have been doing it for a couple of years. And those were not the people that I needed to pay attention to. But I did feel that. I did feel that moment of, oh, they're so ahead of me. And I decided to stop following a lot of people because first I needed to start following people that would become my clients. I needed to engage with people that I felt inspired by. And it wasn't that it wasn't inspired by all these other people.
Yeah.
It was just that we were all on a line and we were all saying the same message to the world. And I was like, I don't need to see what I'm posting. Yeah. And it was also influencing what I was posting as well. It was also influencing the way that I was writing because I wanted to write and share the content as if I was competing with these other people. And I'm being honest with you right now.
Sam, that is so powerful.
I was creating content for them.
Yeah.
Right? Seeing that with all these buzzwords that the client that needed to see my content didn't know about a funnel or all these other things at that time that I was doing, whatever it is that I was selling. I was using big words that they understood, but the person that actually needed me had no idea what I was saying. So it came to that. It came to like unfollow if you feel like you're comparing yourself, like set boundaries. And online, the only thing that you can do is block people or unfollow them or just stop, you know? And then the other thing was looking at your content and really understanding who are you creating this content to. If it's to stand out in your industry with other people, you're probably going to do that, but you're not going to get as many clients because you're not speaking that client's language, that target audience language. So I had to get out of that mindset of doing that. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. And, you know, your tagline, which I love, is the stories we tell become the offers we sell. And I think that it's very important as we elevate, not only as humans, but certainly as entrepreneurs or even as leaders in corporate. You have clients, you have people that you're leading, you're managing teams that are either direct reports or tangentially, you know, associated with your type of leadership. And it is very powerful when people feel seen and heard. And as a leader, I think it's imperative that, you know, in layman's terms, we say walk a mile in someone else's shoes or whatever. But I think that putting yourself in the position that they are in and trying to find the message, the right frequency that they're going to hear is so important. To your point about using the right words, using the right tone, using the right story, right?
Exactly.
Women that I work with who are in corporate and struggling with burnout are going to see me getting up at 8 a.m., taking a beach day, you know, twice a month. And they're like, I can't relate to that right now because of where I am. So a lot of my content, to your point, and I'm just kind of thinking through what you're saying, has to be smaller. Like at the time when I was learning strategies about how to how to cope with burnout, it was small, tiny little things. It was like journaling. It was like putting a yoga mat in my office, because I was a teleworker for many years, and in between meetings, stretching my body. It was remembering to go to the bathroom. It was like little things. So they can't relate to what I'm saying now. I have to go back to where I was and make that live in their reality, so that they can hear me and hear the message about, you can get to the other side. Here's what that bridge looks like, right? I feel like that's what I took away from what you just said.
Yes, because I feel like that's why I love storytelling so much, because we can say so much in a story, right? And I feel like when people hear storytelling or stories, they think of these long narratives or long form content, and a story can be a couple of sentences, right? Where you share what happened, what you did about it, and what was the outcome. And I think that a lot of us, for example, I'm going to speak about myself as a strategist. I feel like the content that I was creating before on Instagram, now I'm more on TikTok, but the content that I was creating before on Instagram was really on sharing the graphic with 3 top tips about this. And not everybody wants to read that
Right.
or understand that, or they're not going to save it and come back to it later. They have a folder full of tips, but they might resonate with a story that it's going to deliver the same key things in a different way. And I feel like that's why stories and video, I feel like those two together, when people show up and share specifically with something like what you do, just showing up and sharing with your words, with your, like, it's as simple as, think of whenever you're creating a short video, think it's a FaceTime with your girlfriend and you're telling her a story and how you know. And I think that that's going to resonate more than a graphic or a carousel with all of these different tips and tricks and all these things that we think work, and they might work in between the content that actually makes the conversion, which is stories and creating narratives. And why do we look at all these big brands? They're not just doing graphics with, like, here, buy my bottle of water with a picture of it. They're doing different things. They're interacting. They're contracting influencers so that influencers create stories around that bottle of water. So it's that connection. And I feel like after 2020 as well, I've seen that in brands. I've been in conversations with people who have worked with bigger brands, and they say everybody's looking for that human connection, because now with AI, with how fast we consume content, stories is one of the most human things, right? And I might not remember my great grandmother's name, but I do remember my grandmother speaking to me about her, right? And the stories that she would tell me about her. So that's what I think of when it comes to stories and business, right? First, understanding who you're speaking to and where are they at, right? Not just like, oh, they make 100,000 a year and they are women in 35 to 45 and they're this. Not just that. I think that that's as important, right? Sets the tone of imagining who you're speaking to, but also, what are they going through? What words are they using in their everyday vocabulary about the problem that they have, and I know that I can solve.
Yeah.
So that I can create content for that.
I think a world, if you're not an entrepreneur, you're not into social media, all of those things, and the concept of storytelling is a little bit foreign to you. I want to take you back to, like, meetings that you've been in where maybe the CEO is delivering a message, or if there were layoffs, or if there were just issues at work and in your personal life, and how people use stories to build bridges. And to me, that's what I feel stories are at the core. It's an emotional bridge so that I convey to you or whomever our similarities, or I show you that I understand what you're going through. And I want to ask a question. As you were talking, this came to me. One of the things I'm doing a lot of right now is teaching people.
You're doing a lot right now.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot right now. But this is like, this part of what I'm doing really lights me up, because I worked really hard for the last couple of years on Stacey as a brand. And I think every human has a brand. Like you are comprised of innate things that are unique only to you, right? And, you know, we've heard a little bit from Sam. It's so funny. I've had Samdra. Like I'm, you know, this is easy for me. But for you, example, you have your Puerto Rican heritage. You've got like, do you know what I mean? Like these are, you love cooking. Like if somebody were to ask me about you, I would talk about these things. And all together they comprise Sam. And I've got my own version of that. And I think to people listening to this, like you are unique to the people that know you. And I think in work and in your life, it's important to understand what you stand for. And that's what a brand is. This is what I stand for, whether it's empowerment or strength or perseverance, you know, Nike, just do it. Everybody understands what that means. It means dig deep in, let's go, right? It doesn't matter what's happening. So I feel like understanding who you are at your core, whether it's your core values or whatever mechanism you're using to bring out your truth, your authenticity, that really is so helpful in life overall, isn't it? Because that's where we fall apart with comparison and competition and not feeling like enough. And this segues into kind of my next question for you, which is fear of failure. I think the fear of being seen in a way that doesn't suit other people stops us from being ourselves. And that fear of failure or judgment stops so many magical things from happening in the world, whether it's a book wanting to be written or a clothing line wanting to be born or a gardening, you know, I look at all of these people doing memberships now, and there's a lady that's teaching people how to like grow flowers. Like there is something for everyone. But what are your thoughts on not only personal branding, but understanding that your brand, your authenticity, the genuineness of you and what you bring to whatever the situation is impacts your success?
I love that question. I think first, the good thing about looking at yourself as a story, as an ever evolving story, is that you can always change the narrative.
I love
right?
that.
And you can always look into what's working and what's not working, whether it's your business or your personal brand and how you're seen. And that's why I love storytelling, because you can change the narratives. You can start putting plots here and there to change the way that people see you, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to fear of failure, I'm there with you. For the first year of Samdraland, I didn't have a website. Now I don't have one because I'm changing the platform. But for the first year, I didn't have one. For the only reason was because I was like, oh, I'm gonna be too seen, and I'm not gonna be able to control the people that see my website. Like, I would just rather have them on Facebook and Instagram. If they want to message me, well, they can do it through there, that I can control and block and set boundaries. And I was like, no, you have a business. That's not what you need to be doing. You need to put yourself out there. But for the first year, of course, you know, I am somebody who works mostly one-on-one, and we have had this conversation of having digital products and digital stuff for my business where I can do it once and walk away. But the fear of like, I don't know who's gonna be able to get it. And I will say this, moving here has given me two things on that topic. First is I have to create things in my business that let me enjoy Puerto Rico. And that means creating digital products and not just one-on-one. Staring away from that fear of having so much control of who gets access to. Because that's not reality, and that's not a good way to scale your business. You're not going to grow.
Yeah.
And the other thing is also understanding that before, I only wanted to do digital because I was like, I want to live in all these different places. And, you know, but when I first started, I always thought, like, oh, remote, it's so easy. But now with the home bakery, I was like, I do want to have my brick and mortar, and I want to create narratives around working with communities in Puerto Rico. So I already started with my own personal TikTok account and other personal spaces online speaking about Puerto Rico and the the opportunities that are here and the things that people might not inherently see because they might have a perception of Puerto Rico that is different from mine. I would say that fear is powerful. It's a really powerful thing, but it's as powerful as you give it power to, right? And I think that for me, for many years, it was really powerful, and I gave it a lot of power. It dictated how I was showing up for my business and even for my life in some instances. But I will say that it's so human.
Yeah.
It's being scared and not doing the thing because of all these things. I'm an overthinker, right? And because I overthink, sometimes fear creeps in. And one of the things that I have worked on is I love reading. It's reading more about power and the power that we have and understanding that I'm in control. And how I said before, that discipline and ambition, I'm the one who controls that, right? So I would say it's there. I think that every entrepreneur goes through fear of failure because if you're just doing it for just, you don't have a fear that you might not be able to pay your mortgage next month or, so there's a lot of, it does have entrepreneurship and fear. There's a relationship there, but it's as important as you let it be. So I have let it be not as important anymore because I was like, I cannot let fear of growing my business be the thing that stops my business. If my business is going to be successful, is because I have the power to it. To do that. If it's going to be unsuccessful, I also have the power to do that. So I decide either way it's going to be difficult, right? So
I think too, getting curious about our emotions is a way to face it head on, right? I've found myself sometimes, because in the last couple of months, I've done some big things that have felt pretty freaking audacious. And there's a part of me that's like, who do you think you are? And that's just old conditioning. And sometimes when it gets really powerful, like if I'm stepping into a space where I truly feel anxiety, it's not because I can't do it. I just want to do it so well that it's flawless. And life doesn't work that way. And so I do think that sitting with yourself quietly, whatever medium you choose to use, whether it's journaling or meditation, or some people do kickboxing, right? like there is like a sexy release in rhythmically kicking, pounding, and getting some sort of movement, somatic movement in your body to release, right? But I do think that curiosity and fear also have, there's a beautiful love language there, that if you sit with your fear and you really try to figure out, well, what are you really scared of? And you talk through it the same way that you would a child. There's like an unraveling of the whatever power, to use your word, it had over you. And you're like, oh, the same way I created that fear and give it fangs and made it so like serious and impenetrable, I can defang it. I can take I can really put this back in its box and right size the fear. You talk about stories. I use stories with my kids all the time. And my son was having a lot of anxiety. He was starting a new school and didn't know anyone, and had to catch the school bus, which was new for him, and didn't know any of the teachers. And it just felt like a big moment in his life. And he was not dealing with it well. And we laid down on the carpet, and I made him take some deep breaths. And I said, tell me what you're scared of. And he said, well, I don't know anybody. And I said, okay. And then he said, and I don't know how to take the bus. And what if I get lost? And he's like, everything. I'm scared of everything. And I said, well, let's pick 3. And I think a lot of times when we say I'm scared of everything, my gosh, imagine the immensity of your body and your psyche shutting down and not having solutions because everything is impenetrable at that moment. And so in Adam's case, we pick three things. We pick the logistics, i.e. the school bus and him getting lost. We pick not knowing anybody. And I forget the other one that we picked. But for logistics, I said, this is your bus number. They have your name on the roster. They take you straight to the school. And then I pick you up from the bus stop. Like, there's no way that we're going to lose you, kid. Right? And I said, and when it comes to not knowing anybody, I'm going to put out a note in the group. He had won a choice school thing. So he was going out of our area for school. And I said, I'm going to put a note out and see if any other kid is starting, and maybe we can do an ice cream date. So you have at least one friend. And so we did that. And he met some kid, and me and the mom were like, thank gosh you did this. And, you know, I say that to say, when you say you are scared of everything or everything feels horrible, like, you can't give over to that emotion, because that's not a truth. Not everything is like scary, right? So a quick way is maybe pick the 2 or 3 things and look at them and be like, hey, what's a mini solution for this? Like take the tempo and the urgency down, right? But I love what you said about kind of exploring that further and leaning into it and actively pursuing things that for a lot of people, Sandra, they would be like, well, you're doing everything and aren't you overwhelmed? And you're telling us that, no, I came home. Yes, I bought a house close to my parents. I can respect their boundaries and put boundaries in place so that they respect mine. I have to revisit my time management and discipline skills. I have to understand that my business itself is morphing, and I'm going to detract and not do certain things, and then I'm going to do more of certain things. And what I love the most about what you're saying is you're showing up for your clients, your family, your friend, and even yourself and your husband and your dog probably differently, right? As a result of you actively leaning into what some would consider a lot. And that's another thing we use up. Oh, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think it's enough. I will tell you why. I think that the way that I'm doing my business is right now, I just started the home bakery. And it has gone really well. What I'm doing is just establishing here the legalities of it. And I did had a couple of orders, but it has been something that it's going to be more 2025. And when I say that it's not enough, it's because I still find myself moments where I'm like, I could be doing something. And that's besides the relaxed moments, besides being with my husband and families. I still feel like there is momentum in those little moments of not doing anything. And I start thinking, I was like, well, I should be working on this. And that's how the bakery came up, because I was like, I closed it. I had it. That was my first business. I had it for a couple of years. Then I closed it, moved here. And then I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that because that's going to work and expand what I want to do with my life. And I think also I was for a long time scared of being seen in a way for my business, in a way where I was like, what if I do make it, right? How does that look like? What if I do start making a lot of money? How does that, what am I, am I going to change? And I'm like, that's what you want. Like, you want it. Why are you so scared of it? It was a lot of conversations with myself, with my family members about growing, and understanding that I do have to go through these growing pains. One thing that I will say that has worked for me, I saw it somewhere, it's not mine. Whenever you are doing something new, or meeting with a new client, or starting a new business, or starting something new that you have to present, that you have to be perceived, that you have to be seen. Imagine you're in a dance recital. Whenever you go to the audience, nobody knows what your next move is. Nobody knows how the dance is supposed to go. Nobody knows the choreography. And I look at it like that, and it just calms me. That same example comes to mind. It's like, they don't know what I'm supposed to do next. They don't know if I'm going to do a flip or, if I'm going to, So
plot twist.
Understanding that not everybody online and in your life has a book that says, Sam is supposed to be doing this today. This is how she's supposed to show up in her life. for her business, and then that has helped me a lot.
I used to shy away from this term many times, but I think once you have left a country, your birth country, and moved to a whole ass different country and had to like legitimately start over from scratch, it changes your propensity and capacity for whatever comes next. And I think that reinvention, when you talk just now about that, reinvention is a word that many people shy away from, but you're right. You can throw a freaking plot twist in there. You can change the title of your book. Like, it's your life. And the thing that gets me the most clients, and I'm laughing because I'm going to say it and they're going to be like, shit, she used that line on me. Like, they'll come to me and they have something that's burning, right? Like, they have something that is unfulfilled, and that something about what I said or how I show up appealed, and they just want to talk. And then they'll get to a point where they're just like, but nothing is burning down. Nothing is on fire. I'm okay. And status quo to me is the opposite of how I want to live my life, right? Given all the things that I've been through. And so I will say to them, so basically you're living an average life. And then they'll kind of squirm. And then I'll push it a little bit further and I'll be like, if you had to go to have major surgery, and I said, oh my God, let me recommend this doctor to you. He's pretty average. 5 out of 10 patients make it. But go to him. You would be like, hell no. And if I said, oh my gosh, this restaurant, like you wanted a fine meal for your anniversary or birthday. And I said, here's a recommendation for a restaurant. Out of 10 stars, they've got a 5. Half of the people that go there have a really terrible time, but half kind of like it. Go. You'd be like, no. And so why, if this is the one life we get to live, and most of the people listening to me are probably going to be in midlife or shorter, because midlife I heard right now is like 38.
Where?
So if we're all going to live on average to be 70, 75.
Wow.
Right?
Perspective.
Yeah. We're already like, okay, past the midpoint curve. Why settle for the 5 when you could have at the very least the 8 or the 9? If you made some decisions that, and you're ahead of the quo, right? Like, you're ahead of the pack, Sandra. Like, you're making moves that many of us in our 40s are making. And I think more and more I'm getting younger folks in their 30s who want more. And it's this interesting generational shift that's happening, where they're not bought into the status quo that many of us spent decades in before we exited. And so I kudos to you for that. But that's the rub, right? Is how do you disentangle yourself from the comfort zone to go after the life you really want? And you've shown us so well that it can be done. And what I love about what you say is it's not all going to happen overnight. You talked about it taking years to make the move. And even when you're talking about the bakery and kind of going forward with that, you have this innate understanding that that's going to take time, right?
It has to.
Yeah.
I think also for me, when I speak about ambition and the things that I want to do, and all, I honestly just want to get to a point where if something happens, like my dad or somebody gets sick, hopefully nobody ever, but if something happens, that I can have systems in place with my businesses and my life where I can hit pause and hit pause on myself, and things can keep running, and that's where I want to be. I want to be in a place where I can be off a month if I need to, and everything is taken care of. And in order for me to be that comfortable to do that, because I don't think I could be comfortable doing that right now. Everything will fall, right? We're getting to that, but it's understanding that where you need to go takes time, because I truly believe that people are able to make whatever it is that they want to do and however it is. I have people that have come to me, it's like, I will pay you to tell me what to start a business on.
Yeah.
And it's because they're like, they want to get out of that 9 to 5, and that's a conversation for another day. But it's like people understand that they want more than what they have.
Yes.
And that could be entrepreneurship, that could be, different things. And I have had those conversations recently, even moving here. I have had people, it's like, I watch you all these years, and I would love for you and I to sit down, and I would love to start a business because I know that there's potential. So I want to keep doing what I'm doing because I know that I'm being seen, even though sometimes I'm like, too much visibility. We want that and we need that for our business.
Yeah.
And you're being seen by people. The person who first purchased my first cake here, for when I started my business, I announced it, and a week later she was like, I want to buy a cake for my birthday. It's in November. She went to college with me 8 years ago, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And we are in each other's socials, but we don't have a friendship, right? And the fact that she said, I know that you're here now, and I've seen your cakes throughout all these years in Texas.
Right.
You're seen by people that you don't think that you're being seen by.
Yeah.
So when I think about showing up, I show up to that one person who's a silent watcher that one day might become something else. So
I love
thinking that way, because we have really present. Sometimes we think, oh, I don't have a lot of engagement online. That's not true. You're being seen. It's just a lot of people don't engage the way that they used to.
And that's not on you, right? That's on them and their readiness level. So Sam, what one piece of advice you would give to the listener that is in status quo and struggling with just what you were talking about? Like, I want to do something different, but whatever, they're waiting for the right time or they don't have the resources. Like, what would you say to that person along the lines of storytelling and like this?
Look at your own story.
Yeah.
What narratives are you sharing? If you have said that I started going to the gym, and I have lost since I moved here like 18 pounds, right? And I was like, well, what? Like, oh, I'm going to the gym, doing these things. I haven't gone in a little while because I was not going. But I remembered my sister started join me. She was like, I'm gonna do it because she's a gym person. It's like, you want to go with me? I was like, sure. So we did it together. And she said, don't start and then don't do it, because I'm getting excited that you're doing it, right? So I'm creating a narrative with her that I'm gonna go to the gym, and I'm gonna go back. But my thing is, I'm already being perceived as the person that goes to the gym, right? So I want to be that person, so I have to continue that story. I have to keep going. So if you're somebody, this is something that you can do for free, is look at your story, at the things that you're promising to other people, the things that you're promising to yourself and your future self, right? What are you doing right now today to fulfill that? And create structure around how you want your life to be. Because I think that once you write it down, draw it, think about it, whatever it is, once you put it down in paper, I think, that you're going to be able to create a story and narrative around that, right? It's like, so what can I do today as part of that story so the plot thickens, right? And I get to do what I get to do
I love
in
that.
the future. So I will say, look at your story and how you're being perceived right now for yourself, for your future self. What does she need you to do right now for you to get to her, right? My future self, she goes to the gym. She's financially free. She does all of these things, right? She has a brick and mortar. What can I do today to get to her faster, to get to that version of my story? So I will share that.
And I think also step into the lead role of your life. For me, that's imperative. Like, own you're the lead person in this life, and do a really thorough, I hate to use the word analysis, but it is what it is, of who your supporting characters are, the people that you spend the most time with, because they will make or break your story to some extent also. And so I think coming up on the new year, a lot of us are looking at resolutions and word for the year and all of these cool things. Take a scan of like the other humans you are journeying with at this point in your story, And are they serving you? Are you showing up for them the way that you should? Because there's some self-assessment there too if you are only taking and not giving. But it isn't just a one man or woman show. It really has to be a decision to kind of craft the life that you want. Sam, thank you so much. How can people find you if they are interested in what you do? And if they're visiting Puerto Rico and want to hit up some of that beautiful, delicious bakery items?
So I think the drink that you had was coquito.
Yes.
Which is like
amazing.
Different coconut milks and stuff. Yes. I love it. I actually need to make some. My mom purchased everything to do so. Samdraland everywhere. At Samdraland. I'm mostly active on TikTok. I love video and creating content through video. I think it's important. And LinkedIn as well.
I love that. So today, 3 actionable strategies that I got from this conversation, and then I hope, there were so many more. But for me, the 3 that really stood out was crafting your brand story, whether that's identifying your core values or your unique experiences, and then weaving them into your messaging if you are an entrepreneur, so that authenticity comes through. But also if you are not, and you are in corporate, or you are a leader or not, you just a human being yourself, how are the things that have shaped you, how can you kind of use those stories to sort of influence and impact other people? The second thing is we talked a lot about fear to action, breaking big goals into smaller actionable steps, and reducing overwhelm and kind of the power that this fear can sometimes have that stops you in your tracks. And then the third thing we touched on was regular goal alignment and really looking back, having a plan, understanding when you can put gas, on the plan, and understanding when you need to pull back and maybe revisit some of those, right? Samdra, thank you so much for sharing your story and insights with us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Your journey to me is a powerful reminder that when we align our work with our passions, the possibilities are endless, including pursuing, passions that we've loved so long ago, like cooking and baking. But also, I really am going to need you to mail some of that some of that drink for me. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Beyond the Quo. If Sam's story resonated with you, please make sure that you share it with other people. You leave us a review, a 5-star rating. Reach out to Sam if you want to learn more about her. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring conversations that challenge the status quo and empower you to lead boldly and authentically. Thank you.